Hey, hello everyone. Can you tell me in the chat if you can see my screen? Let's see if this is working. Yes, awesome. Okay, so welcome to the webinar and thanks for joining. The idea of this webinar is first to explain in like 5 minutes what is Auth0 and how does it work. And then we'll do a live coding session in which we'll add to a very simple single page app with just 2 pages. We'll add authentication to it with Auth0 using lock. So after that, then we'll have like 15 minutes where people can ask questions. So whatever questions you have, just like write them down on the chat, and then I'll answer it once the webinar has finished. So let me start by explaining you a little bit about Auth0. So Auth0 is basically identity made simple for developers. What that means is that Auth0 is a SaaS that helps you with authentication. So whenever you have a mobile app, a web app, or an IoT app, and you actually need to add authentication to it, you can use Auth0. So that authentication can be done with either social providers like GitHub, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Twitter, and like 30 others. You can also use a username and password. So users can log in with their own username and password and create a user. And those users can be stored in either Auth0 database or in your own database if you want. And then finally, Auth0 also supports enterprise connections like SAML, Active Directory, WS Federation, Office 365, Google Apps, and many others. Once you have the authentication hooked up to your app, besides authentication and besides the API, what we provide is a nice UI that is called Lock, which is native for both the web, which is the example that you see here, but we also have a native UI for iPhone, for Android, for Windows Phone, for Xamarin, for Apple and Windows native apps, as well as C# apps. So whatever you use, you can get the native look and feel. Finally, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that if you want to add then enhanced security to your application, like if you want to add multi-factor authentication, or if you want to add a special rule or requirement to your application, you can also do that in Auth0. To learn more about rules and the other things that you can do in the dashboard, you can sign up to the other webinar that we have bi-weekly, which is an Auth0 dashboard demo. However, in this one, what we'll see is how we can add authentication to an existing single page app. So this is the application that we have right now. It just says Auth0 and it says welcome, and then it has a button that says call API. That's it. That's all we have. So let's start our server that we already have created, and let's now click on the call API. So what you can see is that what it's saying is unauthorized error, no authorization header was found. So what that means is that this button that is call API, it basically will call an external API from this single page app. And that external API will check that the user is authenticated. At this point, the user is not authenticated. So what we need to implement is authentication. And for that, we'll actually use Auth0 and we'll use lock. So let's first see the application. So this is the application that we have right now. And basically, it's a very simple index.html where we have 2 pages, which are not real pages. All we have is 2 divs. The first one is right now not displayed, which will show the login. And then the second one is the one that we're seeing right now that has this call API button as well as this welcome text. So what we'll do now is we'll implement this first page, which will let users log in. The other things that we're injecting in here is we're adding jQuery, we're adding lock, which is the Auth0 library that will show this beautiful UI for logging in. And then we also have added the application.js and the application.css. So let's remove this style display none from the first one and let's add it into the second one. Let's refresh the page. Let's actually start the server. And now, once it loads, let's see. Oh, that's the internet that is not working very well. It's this one. can remove it probably otherwise. Let's try one more time. So here you see this is the original page and we have this sign in button. Now if we click here, it does absolutely nothing. So the first thing that we want to do is to configure lock. So for that, in our application.js, we can just instantiate this lock. So we can say var lock equals new lock. And as a configuration for lock, you need to send the information from your application. For that, if you go to your Auth0 dashboard, this is the Auth0 dashboard for samples that I use, and go to apps APIs, you'll have here one that is called, in my case, frontend and backend sample, and here you have the domain and the client ID. These are the two things that you need to set to lock, so that lock knows that whenever it contacts Auth0 to create a token once the user is authenticated, it will use the secret that is specified in here. We'll see a little bit more about this in a second. So we have all of that configuration in here in this Auth0 variables.js. So let's actually just use that. So we're going to say that we're going to use the Auth0 client ID and then the Auth0 domain. And with this, we've created lock. Now, all we need to do is actually call this lock from whenever the user clicks on the login button. So whenever the user clicks on this login button, we're going to handle an event, and we're going to say that we're going to prevent the default one, and then we're going to do lock.show. And that's it. With this, lock should be shown. So now let's come back to our app, let's refresh and let's click on sign in. And of course, it's not working. So lock is not defined. Oh, okay. This lock is not defined. Same. Let's see again. It should be imported from lock. Oh, it's because, sorry, the name is Auth0 lock. Let's try one more time. Now we click on sign in, and now we get this lock UI in which we can choose to sign in with like Facebook, GitHub, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, or we can enter an email and password, or we can just sign up a new account. So let's for now just click on Facebook and see what's happened. So I click on Facebook. This is actually going to Facebook and then it's coming back. And as you can see, I'm getting here the access token, the ID token and everything, but we're not doing anything with this. So what we should do is once Auth0 actually authenticates me, we should actually do something with that information. So let's try one more time with GitHub as another example. So if I click here on GitHub, it will redirect me to GitHub and then it will come back. If we try this on incognito mode, you will see that actually when I click on GitHub or on Facebook, that page is actually shown. In my case, this sign-in phase from Facebook and GitHub wasn't shown because I'm already logged in on Facebook and GitHub, so it doesn't need me to log in nor to give any access. So going back here, now what we have to do is handle the login or success or error. And for that, we can just send a function here, which receives an error in case there was an error. It also receives the full profile from the user. So this full profile that we will receive from the user, it will be returned from either Facebook, Twitter, Google, etc. Auth0 will actually unify this. So Facebook might call the name first name, Google might call the name, I don't know, first underscore name, and Auth0 will actually get all of that and just use like certain fields, which are name, nickname, picture, so that for you it's the same, whatever service the user is using to log in. And the third parameter is actually a token. So the token that we will receive is a JSON Web Token. We'll see in a minute what it is, but the idea is that this token needs to be sent to the API every time that we want the user to be stayed logged in. So in this case now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to check if there's an error. So if there's an error, we're going to alert this error, and then we're going to return with that. Otherwise, what we should do is we should just, for now, redirect the user to the next page. So let's save locally the profile and the token. And let's say that the profile, so it's global profile for now and global token. And let's say that the global profile will equal the profile and the global token will equal this token. And now all we need to do is go to the second page where the user is authenticated. So right now that second page is just hiding and showing certain fields. So all we need to do is just hide this login box and show the login box. So let's do that. So let's get this login box and let's actually hide it. And then let's just show the login box. Finally, what we want to do is we want to show some information from the profile. And for that, we have this welcome nickname as well as this image avatar that is in here. So let's show the avatar and let's show the nickname for this person. For that, we can get the avatar and we can set the attribute source for it, which will be the global profile dot picture. And then we can set to the nick actually the name of the person, which is global profile dot name. And with this, we should be able to redirect the user to the login page. So let's actually try it. Let's open it now that I don't have faith on me. Maybe there's an error. It seemed to work. So let's click on sign in. And now let's say that I'm going to sign in with Twitter. So now I get to Twitter, I say, okay, I authorize the application. And then when I get back, I'm getting to the sign-in page. It's showing my logo. It's not showing my name. Probably I screwed up with the name of the field. Yep, it's nickname. So let's change it to nickname and let's actually try it one more time. So let's click on sign in. Then say we're gonna sign in with Twitter. We're gonna authorize the application. And now once it's redirected, it says welcome Gonto, and it has this my avatar. Now we can try clicking call API since we are logged in. So if I click on this call API, as you can see, it's still not working. It's still saying no authorization header was found. And that's because even though we're saving locally the token, we are not actually sending it on the request. So we need to be able to send this token on the request to the server so that the server can then verify that the user has logged in with Auth0. That's one of the problems that we see here. The second problem is that if I refresh the page right now, all my login information is lost and I need to log in again. And we don't want that for applications. So what we can do for that is, since this is a single page app, there's not a notion of being logged in as it used to exist. When we were coding a regular web app, the notion of being logged in meant that the user existed in a session object in the server. Now, being logged in means having this token, because if you have this token saved somewhere in your application, then you can call the APIs securely. So what that means is that in order to stay logged in, all we need to do is save locally in the browser this token and this profile. So let's do that. Let's come here and let's use local storage and let's just save the token as this global token. And then let's also save the profile. Since the profile is an object, we need to actually stringify it. So let's stringify this global profile. And with this, we're saving it. But the problem is that this won't work because we still need, once this page loads for the first time, to check if we have something in the local storage. And if we do, then what we would do is actually show the login page instead of the login page. So for that, let's refactor this a little bit. This part was the one that is logging the user in and showing that information and going to the second page. So let's extract this and let's add a function that is called login, which receives the profile and the token as well. So let's receive the profile and the token. And what this will do is, if there's not a token or if there's no profile, then it will return, it will do nothing. Otherwise, it will just show this login box, show the login box and hide the other one. So in here now we can just call this login function with the global profile and the global token if you want. The other thing that we need to do is on page load now, whenever the page loads for the first time, we need to check if somebody has stored in local storage these values. But first, let's try this out. So now let's come to resources and local storage, and let's actually delete all of them. Now let's click on sign in. We're gonna sign in with Twitter. We're gonna say that we're gonna authorize the application, and then once it's coming back, oh wow, it didn't work out now. Let's try one more time. At least we did get the error message saying that it's not working. So let's come again. Let's click on sign in. And now instead of Twitter, we can try another service to see if it works. Let's click on Facebook. And now it's saying, hello, Martin Gonto. And as you can see here, now we have this token saved as well as this profile. So then now if I refresh the page, this still shows the previous page, so the sign-in page, but all the values of the token and the profile are still saved in local storage. And that's good because that's what we need to check now on page load. So now this global profile will actually be, as a default, it will be local storage.get item. It will be the profile. And if this exists, what we will do is we will then parse this object, so using the JSON.parse, so that we can get the full object and not just the string. And now the global token will actually be local storage.getItem token. And the only other thing that we need to do is, if there's a global token and there's a profile, then we can just log in the user without him needing to click the login button. So for this case, we're going to just call this login with global profile and global token. Otherwise, what we should do is we should show the login page. So what we should do is this same thing, but instead of hiding this one, we should just show it. And the last thing is that by default now, both sections, both pages will be actually hidden. So both sections won't be shown. So let's actually see if this works. So now I reload the page and boom, I'm directly on the second page. It says, welcome Martin Gonto, and it has my image. I refresh and it still works. But now let's actually try deleting this profile and token. So if I delete these two and now I refresh, now I get sent back to the sign in again. And that's because there's nothing in local storage. So let's sign in one more time. And now let's try clicking this call API. So it still doesn't work. As I was saying, what we need to do now is send this token back to the server. But let's see what this token is. So if we go to jwt.io, we can actually paste the token in here. And the special thing about this token is, in general, tokens are just opaque. So tokens have absolutely no value. The nice thing about the JSON Web Token is that it has a value inside. So this red part that you see here is actually this red part in here, which is saying that this is a JSON Web Token, and it's using this algorithm that we'll see in a second to actually create the signature. This part is base64 URL encoded and put in here. Then a dot is added, and then we have this violet part. This is the payload. The payload is mostly free text. In this case, what it's saying is that the creator of this token, the issuer, is the samples.auth0.com. The sub is the user ID. In this case, it's from Facebook, and this is my profile ID from Facebook. The audience is the client ID that identifies this app in Auth0. And then we have the expiration date of when this token is not longer valid, and this issue that. All of this is base64 URL encoded and added in here. And then finally, using a secret and using the hashing method HMAC256, this signature is created. So the secret that you see here is going to be a shared secret that is known both by Auth0 and your API. And what that means is that Auth0 can create these tokens with a particular secret that Auth0 knows, and then your server can validate it because your server will know exactly the same secret as Auth0. So in this case, it's saying invalid signature, and that's because this page wasn't created with this secret. But if I come to my application settings and I copy these client secrets, and I check this base64 encoded, you will see that it says signature verified. And that's because I'm using now the secret that is in Auth0. And that's exactly the same that we'll do in our API. So that now that we know what a JSON Web Token is, let's actually send it. So let's come to our application and let's just send the header. So the headers will actually be empty and by default, and then what we'll do is if there's a global token, then headers.authorization will actually equals to better space and then the token itself. And now all we need to do is just send these headers. And that's it. Now we are going to send in the request this JSON Web Token. So let's refresh the page and let's click on this call API. And now it's saying the request to the secure endpoint was successful. Let's actually see the request. So if we come to network, you'll see that the last one is this ping, and you'll see that it's sending this authorization header which says better and the token itself. So this means that I can do this request authenticated. Let's see 1 second at my API. It's a very simple API, and all it's doing is it's including this express JWT library. This is a Node.js application, and this basically validates the JSON Web Token that we're sending using the Auth0 client secrets and the Auth0 client ID. These two values are actually gotten from the dashboard, as I have shown you before, and they are held in this case in here in this .emb file. So with this, we have just concluded added authentication to a single page app. And we've also learned how we can actually log this person out, because when you're doing a single page app, the concept of being logged in doesn't exist. All that it means to be logged in is actually having this profile and token in here. So now, as I was saying before, we delete it, we refresh, and now it's time to sign in again. If you want to see these same examples, you can just go to docs.auth0.com, and in the Quick Start Navigator that shows on top, you can actually choose what technologies. So in this case, you're doing a single page app with jQuery, and you're using Node.js as your server. And this will give you a seed project that you can download with your keys already configured for your Auth0 account. And otherwise, it will give you detailed instructions of how to do it, which is basically the same that I have just done in this live demo. The same exists for Node.js. However, if you actually want to use another technology, you will see that we support a very big variety of single page apps, as well as a very big variety of APIs and different technologies. So with this, I'm finishing this demo and this webinar, but I'm completely open to any questions that you guys have. For now, there are no questions, which means that it was like too clear or it wasn't clear at all. I'm yet not sure of which one. Okay, so I just got a question which says, how do you consolidate the user across social networks? That's a very good question. There's something that we have in Auth0 accounts. And basically the idea is that whenever you are calling lock, if together with, so whenever you call lock, let's go to the example, by default, you are just not sending any parameters. However, what you can do is you can first log in a person with Facebook or Twitter or Google on one service. And then once that person logs in, you get this token, as I was saying. Then what you can do is you can call this log.show again, but this time you can actually send in here an ID token which will be the token that you received before. So it's Facebook token. And in this case, now the user can choose another service, another social network to actually be able to log in. And what that will let you is connect the user with this Facebook account together with the Twitter account. And again, what that means is that now, whenever the user is logging in, instead of getting just the Facebook information, you'll actually be getting the Facebook and Twitter information. Let me show you a second how actually the profile object looks like. So let's log in with Facebook. And now let's get the console here. Let's do local storage.getItem profile. And let's do a JSON.parse of this. And as you can see here, the profile itself has an object inside that is called identities. So in these identities, you would have one for each of the services that the user used to log in. In my case, it's only Facebook, so you get the access token from Facebook. But if you link this account to Twitter, Google, or any other service, you would get all of those other services shown in here as well. Does this answer the question? Great, I'm glad it did. Also, Morgan said that there's no question, but it was a good intro. Thank you very much. Anybody else has any other question, comment, doubts, or anything? I'll wait one more minute, and otherwise we can just say that that's it. Let's give one more minute to see if somebody else wants to ask a question. So Mike is asking here how you can get access to the recording later. And basically, once the recording is done, we'll actually upload it to Wistia, which is kind of similar to YouTube, and we'll send this link to everybody who has attended this webinar, as well as adding it in the page where you guys subscribed. So I'll follow up with the email, with an email with the recording. Okay, so if there's nothing else, thank you very much for listening. One last thing that I want to say, I'll send it into the chat. I'll share my email, which is gonto@auth0.com. And if you guys have any other questions or comments or anything like that, you can just shoot me an email, or you can also ping me on Twitter if you want, which is mgonto. And that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.